Welcome back to The Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host today. Joining me, as always, is the political junkies, MAGA Jesse in the red hat, and William Beck, Mr. Straight Lace himself, in the flannel. You guys are both looking good today.
Thank
MAGA
you.
Jesse, I don't know if we'll get time to talk about Trump at all
That's
today,
okay.
but we are on watch in case they do an indictment, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The fraud that that case is, got to call it out.
It is a fraud, and I watched a little bit of the Hannity interview last night. Did you get a chance to look at that?
I just watched the very beginning of it. I haven't gotten past the first 10 minutes or so.
Gotcha. Well, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Let's get right into the subject at hand. We've been talking about this transgender issue pretty much every week for the last 3 weeks. I was commenting to the team here. Oh, I'm sorry, Dawson. Dawson in the control room, running the dials. That's like, how many shows in a row do I keep forgetting about you, Dawson?
All the time.
I'm very sorry about that. I think you got to turn up the lights more, because otherwise you just like blend in with, I don't know. My bad. I feel really bad about that. And Dawson, I'll make it up to you today, okay?
I have no idea what that might mean.
It probably means like Cane's chicken or something like that.
Okay,
Ooh.
that sounds great.
And now everyone else is jealous. Okay, let's get into this. We've been talking about this transgender issue for a while, and I said to the staff, I'm like, geez, we've had Leigh Finke on pretty much every image of the show for like the last 2 weeks. And once again, the leading story, at least the story that we think we have to talk about, is this, I don't know, is it growth of violence amongst the trans community? It's hard to tell here, but I think we're going to give you some stuff you probably aren't going to see anywhere else that's going to make you kind of go, I wonder what is going on here. And I don't know if I'm going to have a conclusion at the end, but I can't wait to get the opinion you political junkies over here, because this is really bizarre. We know, and you keep saying this to me, William, the left, anytime there's a travesty, any kind of time there's any kind of shooting, they go right to the politics, right to gun control. So here we are asking a question, taking a play right out of the playbook of the left. You talk about the politics of it. However, unlike the left, I'm not going to say that there's a full drawn-out conclusion, because I don't know here. What we do know is yesterday in Nashville, Tennessee, a disturbed young individual who identified as a transgender male, so it's a female who said her pronouns are he, him, shot up 6 people, including 3 9-year-olds, in a private school yesterday. Very, very tragic event. Of course, the left generally flies onto the scene saying why they want to take more of our guns away. In this case, they're perplexed because at the heart of this case is a transgender individual who we've argued for a long time have some kind of mental illness, right? Gender just, if we believe it's gender dysphoria, in many cases it could be, I want to be unique and different. And so people are dealing with mental issues. And there's certainly what we consider monsters when they are trying to do things to children. And there's no such thing as transgender children, because you don't know shit when you're a child. So they want to hack up young children, which is just, we should all agree that that is completely wrong. So anyhow, we're going to get into that. But the first thing we want to show you is a video of Leigh Finke that was sent to us that I don't think a lot of people have seen.
Let's be real here. It's Chris Finke, right? That's what Tucker's been
Chris
saying
Finke?
in the comments. Yeah. Call him by his real name.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't really care if you want to be referred to as a different name. Just don't require me to use the pronouns of your choosing. You can't tell me what to say, right? But listen, if you want to change your name, I don't care if it's Leigh Finke. I have no problem. But yes, formerly known as Chris Finke, right?
Mm-hmm.
When Leigh Finke identified his biological gender. Jesse, by the way, is putting together some pretty deep research on Leigh Finke, and we hope to have that released by early next week. Is that correct?
Right, yeah. I don't want to spill the beans right now. I don't want to give away too many details, because when it comes out, people are going to be shocked.
Now, of course, radical leftists will accuse us of bullying little Leigh Finke, or little Leigh Finke. The shoulders are probably almost as big as mine.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, Leigh Finke's a monster, because his big bill, the thing, because he's a freshman, the big bill, the number one signature legislation is to hack up 6-year-old children that identify as, which is so ridiculous to say this, but identify as the other gender, not their birth gender, the gender that they were given by God. Because, of course, in their sick, twisted minds, God got it wrong. So that's what Leigh Finke's signature legislation is. That's why I think this person's a monster. On top of these things like we're talking about with drag shows and all these other things. So let's watch this. We came across this video of Leigh Finke in a church. I'm going to say that in quotations, a church. This is, what was this? We assume this was within a year or two ago. Is that correct, Jesse?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and see here.
And you got the whole video. I think there's 40 minutes of this video. This is just a snippet. But this is the most important snippet. This came to us via Liberty Loca on Twitter. And Leigh Finke is actually calling for violence. So let's go ahead and watch
let's
this.
see here. It was 8 months ago.
8 months ago. Okay, perfect.
I accepted this invitation. I planned to talk to you about trans rights and advocacy work and the work that I love that I have been able to do with LGBTQ young people, especially LGBTQ youth and Christian families. I love that work so much. It has defined the last several years of my life. I've dedicated my life to it, and it would have felt good for all of us, I think, to have this conversation about how we can better help and protect trans kids. But I just don't think there's time right now for trans people to make speeches intended to make other people feel good. The world is changing too fast, and in the midst of that change is a movement to make trans people illegal in this country, and they are winning. So I'm here to tell you that there will be more riots. We remember Stonewall as a riot, and we know now that it was necessary. The next riots will be necessary too. And you will learn the names of brave trans people taking to the streets to demand dignity and life and love and health care and peace. And it will not be granted to us anytime soon. We will keep fighting. I hope you will keep fighting. I hope that you will riot alongside of us.
Man.
Happy Pride.
You ever notice how the term that they use to describe the LGBTQIA plus community is one of the 7 deadly sins? Pride. Yeah, isn't that interesting? In a church, this is what Leigh Finke tells the parishioners, and it's fascinating to me because it's like this is actually a criminal act. Minnesota statute 609.71 is rioting, right? Rioting in the 3rd degree. 1st degree would be like you actually kill somebody, and the 3rd degree is actually punishable of up to 1 year imprisonment. It's when 3 or more persons assemble disturb the public peace by an intentional act or threat of unlawful force or violence to person or property. Each participant therein is guilty of riot 3rd degree and may be sentenced to imprisonment not more than 1 year or payment of a fine of not more than $1,000 or both. That's in the 3rd degree. 2nd degree between that and 1st degree, which includes murder. I'm not going to say right now that Finke was calling for murder. Maybe.
Well, what's crazy is that they say that Trump incited riots by telling people to protest peacefully. Meanwhile, Leigh Finke is calling for the transgender community to literally riot, like the events at Stonewall. So, I mean, it most certainly didn't cause this shooting. We don't really know the motive behind it yet, but man, if people start connecting the dots here, it doesn't look good for the trans community.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm going to connect those dots to let you guys do what you want to do at home. I want to first just address that very good point you just made there, William, that Donald Trump literally says, now let's go to the Capitol and peacefully protest, or whatever his words were. We all know that he didn't say what the media is saying. We say, like, fight like hell. But when he says fight like hell, everyone knows in politics that's just normal parlance. It's not saying a call for violence. But Leigh Finke says it too.
Yeah.
Where was the media on this one? Where's the media currently on this one?
Yep.
I'm guessing you've never seen this video before, right? This is the person on the signature piece of legislation that just passed the Minnesota House Friday morning? Yeah, it was Friday morning at 5 a.m.
Yep.
And he's got support of all the Democrats in charge in the House and Governor Walz and Peggy Flanagan. By the way, no one in the media is still asking, hey, why has Peggy Flanagan got a knife on her shirt that says protect trans kids?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, you know,
Call the violence?
Here in Minnesota, the rioters get protected as long as you're on the left wing, as long as you're Antifa. Antifa Keith Ellison, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about the rule of law, justice, or anything like that. So, even if we showed him, look, Leigh Finke is calling for riots, these Democrats don't care. They protect their own.
Dawson, did you get that email I sent you? Yep. Okay. If you're ready, I think now would be a good time to show that picture I sent you. I know this is a surprise, but man.
What is that?
It says trans rights or else.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, zoom
There's
in
a
a
bunch
little
of
bit.
guns there.
So it's a bunch of guns. Oh, trans rights or else. Yeah, there you go.
We should really start talking about trans wrongs. Am I right?
I love how they got like a lever action rifle with a scope. They don't even know they're guns, I guess. But yeah, it is interesting. Let's pull up. Sorry if I'm going out of order here, but because you jumped me on that one, bring up this Trans Day of Vengeance. And then let's get into the school shooter, because I don't know if we can connect this dot, but obviously the trans shooter is definitely a disturbed individual. Yeah. This came to our attention yesterday, although it looks like the Daily Wire was on top of the story about earlier this month. This is a Trans Day of Revenge or Vengeance. Stop trans genocide, which it's not even true.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't going around and killing trans people. This one thing about a trans person allegedly getting assaulted on the light rail in Minnesota, I've even heard reports that's way misreported, by the way.
I know, and these transgender, the whole transgender agenda, it goes after us in a free country. We're not telling anybody they can't become a transgender as long as they're 18 or older.
Right.
If they really wanted to stop trans genocide, how about you go to Saudi Arabia? How about you go to the Middle East? How about you go to China? These other countries that actually have laws on the books that criminalize transgenderism. So it just shows how inconsistent they are, and they're pushing this crap in the greatest country in the world.
Yeah, and we reported on this a couple episodes ago how really what they want to do is us to all take a knee to what they're saying. Mm-hmm. It's like they want full compliance, right?
Right,
and then they'll stretch it out even further. It's going to be something else that's more ridiculous.
Right, and they don't care about the inconsistencies, how it's happening all over the world, but they want to force us to be the ones to accept their agenda.
A group of transgender activists is planning a day of vengeance in Washington, D.C. from March 31st to April 2nd. So that is this weekend, right? While raising money for firearms training this week, according to its online materials. The Trans Radical Activist Network, which the acronym is TRAN, clever, said on Twitter that the time is now, this is a quote, the time is now, enough is enough, end of quote, and uploaded posters to TikTok that said, quote, we want more than visibility. Trans Day of Vengeance. Stop trans genocide. Save the date. April 1st, 11 a.m., March 31st to be announced. End of quote. Is everyone going to show up at 11 a.m. on April 1st and go, fooled ya? The self-professed Virginia chapter of the group said on Twitter that it would host a dance party at the Richmond Club on Tuesday to raise money, quote, benefiting firearm self-defense training for trans Virginians. Come boogie with us and defend trans lives, end of quote. It just seems, once again, that there is a bit of a radicalized, bit of a potentially violent part of what's considered the trans community, which is, once again, if we're just taking play out of the playbook of the left, you take anyone that might possibly don a MAGA hat, and then it's all of a sudden all MAGA Republicans are the biggest threat to America, as Joe Biden stated. Now, they've gotten a lot wrong. First of all, they got the Juicy Smollett. Dave Chappelle completely ruined that. Juicy Smollett. The two people that he hired in MAGA hats who were just actors weren't really MAGA Republicans, so there's one that they screwed up. Nick Sanderman, that story, that was a way blown out of proportion. What about Kyle Rittenhouse, right? Proving that it was self-defense in a court of law. There's just a bunch of hit and misses on their part. And then, of course, the big one, obviously, is Jan 6. So they're doing everything they can to just make anything like a call to violence in terms of the right if someone likes Donald Trump. Here, you have plenty of examples of people in the trans community, and there's all of a sudden no problem according to them. We all understand why that is. Okay, so do we have that Benny Johnson tweet? I want to bring this up before we get to the trans shooter, because, it was really interesting as we were did you send him the tweet?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a link in that email I sent you.
Yeah, we just pulled that up.
Real quick,
Go
why
ahead.
don't we get to some comments here? So in reference to your things in other countries, Tucker said by regular citizens too, not the government. They'd be thrown off a roof. I missed that comment. So MT Anderson 1 says the problem is spiritual. The spiritual nature of transgenderism is pure evil. And I agree with this point. And I wanted to bring this up when you guys were talking about it. I don't think it's acceptable to say, well, I don't like this thing, but I'm not going to tell anybody that they can't do it, because this does eventually affect you. This is how we're getting this stuff infiltrating our schools. It's because we're saying, well, this is okay, but I draw the line here. And that's how you keep pushing the line further and further. At some point, we do need
I guess
to take
where
a
I'm saying
stand.
I draw the line is 18. So, I'm just saying no kids should be able to do it. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying it's unethical to even allow doctors to perform these surgeries because
On
it
anyone?
ruins lives. Yeah, or at least at the very, very bare minimum, you got to have a lot more scrutiny for how a mental diagnosis is performed in these situations before you do this, because doctors are eager. They're chomping at the bit to perform these surgeries.
I think it's
Very
a small
irresponsibly.
amount of doctors would be. So I think
No,
most
it's a
would-
cash cow. We've talked about this before.
I know, but I don't think a lot of doctors would want to go down that route, and certainly haven't specialized in this thing, because you would think there's some. Well, that might be an assumption that's not merited here, but I think most wouldn't want to do that, right? They haven't performed anything close to it. It's all
the problem
new.
is that's where the industry's going. It may not seem like it right now, but a lot of doctors are being pushed in this direction, and they're too scared to speak up.
I don't know. You could be right on that one. By the way, this is a good time to mention, if you're watching us on YouTube, we are back on YouTube.
Oh, I didn't know we were back.
Silenced us for two weeks. Head over to Rumble. Look up The Truth Hurts on Rumble. And just go in the search, The Truth Hurts. You'll find us. Sign on Rumble and start watching on Rumble, because we have no idea when YouTube's just going to kick us completely off. It's just a matter of time. So here's how yesterday kind of unfolded for us, right? We're kind of catching up on the news stories here at AFRL headquarters. We know that there's a shooter. We first of all knew it was described as a woman, which right away I remarked that's a rarity, right? Women don't generally turn to violence like men. That's why men are mostly making up prisons, because women just don't go to violence like men. We're just a bigger creature and more testosterone, which adds to that maybe pathway to violence.
Well, and it's in our DNA. All throughout history, men have been, called upon to fight in wars and, defend their people and fight for their country and their land. So it comes, and even the caveman times, it comes as no surprise that men are the way they are.
Which is good in the sense that, the left wants to call it toxic masculinity. It's good to have that ability to carry out violence. You just want to have that repressed, because
right, and channeled in the right direction.
Yes, channeled in the right direction, like defending your family or defending an innocent person, or certainly someone going over and defending our country. And in the case of this, shooting a armed crazy person in a school, which a couple good cops did. So anyhow, we find out later in the day that the alias of the shooter is Audrey Hale, and it was quickly discovered by the internet that Audrey Hale went by some different pronouns, he and him. So we wrote up the story quickly, and then we wanted to confirm it and published it. I think probably within about an hour or so of most people becoming aware of the story. Why don't you pull up did I not put that in the show prep? Action for Liberty, our article on it. I think I missed that. Just Dawson, go to actionforliberty.com And just, oh yeah, it is there. So this is Audrey Hale. I'm sure you started seeing these pictures. This is Instagram, or no, I'm sorry, LinkedIn. By the way, LinkedIn has got this page down already. I never
wow.
understand
Not
that. Like,
surprised.
why do they do that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, everyone's screen captured it at this point. Why take it down?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you'd think LinkedIn would want the traffic. Maybe they can put some ads up or something. But
Yeah.
and also just for research purposes, it's also good to keep information up so that people can do their due diligence and find out who this person was.
The woke mob trumps all. I think they don't want any kind of negative attention on the transgender community, so they do their due diligence and scrub any proof that this person existed from the internet.
It's ridiculous.
They already took down the Instagram account, as I noted in the article, too.
Well, I have no idea about the website, but we went in and screen capture and scrolled down here. This is Audrey Hale was a graphic designer, and we took some screenshots of her website. See, I'm going to get close to, I almost feel like a lot of people are worried about misgendering this dead school shooter. Have you noticed that? A lot of they pronouns there. Go back to that. I want you to scroll down there, Dawson. Let's look at some of these images from the website. Keep going down. So, rainbow flag made out of M&Ms. Keep going down. I'm guessing that's a self-portrait. Looks like a pretty disturbed individual.
Yeah, don't look normal.
Mad World. So these are some of the things that she put on her website. Doesn't tell the whole story. It is interesting, though. Kind of dark and ominous, some of it. Did identify, or at least you would imagine, with that rainbow-colored M&M, part of the LGBTQ community. Then we find out, and this is brand spanking new, I think it's on Daily Mail. We learned that the shooter actually had a friend, and she sent a message. And this is fascinating. I just read this before coming on the show, but I think it's worth talking about because this kind of gives you a look into why someone would do something so heinous. And that's it. I mean, and we had a discussion amongst us why someone would do something so crazy. I'm not going to make the conclusion that this is all about the trans thing and it's a Christian school, right? Because that's where our heads are going. Is this a,
retaliation?
Yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the words from Aiden. Aiden being the other name that Audrey went by. So I guess Aiden is the male name. So pull this back up. And Aiden writes to her friend, so basically that post I made on here about you, that was basically a suicide note. I'm planning to die today. This is not a joke. Do you notice that timestamp, 9:57 a.m.? So this is within 20 minutes of her going to the school and shooting it up.
Yeah.
Because I think she was shot, I think she started in the school at about 10:14 a.m. So less than 20 minutes. You'll probably hear about me on the news after I die. This is my last goodbye. I love you. See you again in another life. Audrey. And then in parentheses, Aiden. Audrey, you have so much life to live. I pray God keeps and covers you. This is the friend I'm
And it's
trying
interesting, the friend says Audrey, not Aiden. So
Yeah.
even the friend isn't buying into this transgender BS.
Avriana Patton is the name of the friend.
Hmm.
Okay. And then Audrey responds, I know, but I don't want to live. I'm so sorry. I'm not trying to upset you or get attention. I just need to die. Actually, you are trying to get attention in what you did. I want to tell you first because you're the most beautiful person I've ever seen and known all my life. And then writes, my family doesn't know what I'm about to do. One day this will make more sense. I've left more than enough evidence behind. Will we ever see that evidence? Right?
Mm-hmm.
My sense is it's kind of like, was this Hamlin, or what was the guy's name that the football player that basically collided with the other?
Oh, Damar Hamlin?
Damar Hamlin, yeah. And he alluded to, he wouldn't address what happened, the medical diagnosis. And it's just like, was he told by whoever, do not discuss that this was vaccine related?
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of think like, are they going to protect this manifest and not tell us exactly what is at stake here if they find out it wasn't very flattering to the trans movement? I have no idea.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I don't know if I can allege at this point that it's retaliation from, the Christian upbringing or whatever it is. What I can tell you is this a very disturbed individual, clearly not right in the head, and hates the world. Hates the world as we know it, because why else would you kill innocent little children? It's the worst thing you could possibly do, and it's because you think humanity is just complete suffering and there's no greatness to this world that you would kill innocent children. It's the most horrifying thing that you could possibly do, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You look like you want to say something, William. Are you really not going to say something?
Um,
You do have that look. You have like a comment look.
I did have the look this time. Jake usually falsely attributes my looks to me wanting to say something, but I don't think we should jump the gun and assume motives here, but if we're doing what the left does, I think it's fair that we do what the left does, because they cast motives all the time about this stuff. They say, oh, well,
Well,
this
I don't
is
think
clearly
it's good
racist.
to do exactly what they do, because then you know better than those assholes. But at least
If they're playing a game,
but at least we can address it in the sense and phrase it in the way that this is what they do. So this is what you could do, right? This would be how they would approach this issue.
well, so let's do that then.
Yeah.
If we were coming from the left's perspective, I would say, man, this looks like an anti-Christian attack. It's very clearly, if I were coming from the left's perspective, retaliation for a Christian upbringing, because this person did attend that school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sickening. And I think it speaks to a growing problem that the transgender community harbors a lot of resentment for Christians
Yeah.
who believe in traditional gender roles and believe in traditional marriage.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real problem. Tucker brings up some good points in the comments here. I don't think this was the case for this person, because usually you see the sexual perversions coming from men pretending to be women, not so much the other way around, I think. But he says a lot of cases it's a sexual fetish. Some of the most prolific killers were sexual deviants with extreme fetishes.
Well, and you do, there is that speculation is like, was she getting hormonal treatment, more testosterone, which led to violence? Once again, we don't know this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just purely speculative. This might have been something completely different. Had a vengeance against a certain teacher there that left her to believe that the world was not the way it should be, and that hates humanity because of a awful interaction with a teacher or staff member. Most likely the people that got killed there were bystanders in that regard, because, one was a janitor and 3 little children. What did 3 9-year-olds do to this individual?
Mm-hmm.
Go back to that last article there, Dawson, real quick. You can see right under those text messages, and this is right off the Daily Mail. Scroll down just a tad, you'll see a video, and this is what she looks like entering with a tactical firearm, going haul to haul. Now, we've learned at this point she got in there because she was so the school is locked down, but shot her way through the windows. Scroll down just a little bit. I got the still image of her dressed in some camel fatigues on the bottom pants. Keep going down a little bit more. Right there. Still image. Backwards hat. Big sling on that rifle. So what ends up happening is, I know a lot of you guys know the story, and that's just sad. My wife said last night, can you imagine not being able to put your child to bed at night? It's like, oh God, chills like that. That's a big thing in a parent's life. Every day you put your child to sleep, and then there's 6 parents that aren't going to actually do that. So, I don't want to say that there's a light here in this situation, because obviously very tragic, but within, I think, about 10 minutes or so, police arrived on scene and they entered the school. So let's go ahead and play this video. If you guys haven't seen this is really interesting. And this is how we're going to segue into, this call by the left for gun control. Although I don't know how much they're going to play into that, because this isn't that white MAGA Republican that they always like to go after. Do we have that full video, or are we just going to play the end? Okay, I guess we should just play this part. It is interesting to see them come on the scene and clear some rooms downstairs before they realize that this person's upstairs. So this is the final scene in the body shots that takes down Audrey. Go ahead. Right there, engaged. You know, cops get a bad rep these days, you know, obviously another part of the left. But these cops did a pretty good job from what I can tell. Got in that school. Probably by the time they entered, there was no more damage. And looks like the school was prepared in a situation, got most people out of danger zone. Certainly, if a teacher was armed, you would think that this shooter would not have gotten away with anything.
Right, and I'm not sure if it was the sheriff's department or who it was that put out that body cam footage, but they also deserve credit for being, you know, for having the guts to put that out there right away for the public to see. Usually these things, they all get slid under the rug. We never get to see the footage, and here we are the next day seeing what happened.
Yeah, as Tucker said in the comments, complete opposite of Uvalde.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's where I was just going. Good job, Tucker. Is Uvalde was a situation where really bad law enforcement, I don't want to call them cops, stood around and did nothing, right? And as a parent, if my child was in that school and cops weren't going in, I'd be like, get out of the fucking way, I'm going in.
So Captain Phoenix is asking if we've read the manifesto. I'll read the full comment. Have you guys read the manifesto? It looks like the direct result of the left engaging with what they themselves call stochastic terrorism. Is the manifesto available for public view?
It was not available right before we went in. I'm just doing a quick Google search here.
Yeah. If you have a link, please feel free to share it in the chat.
Yeah, and I'd be a little worried about, what the source is. Yeah, because I'm just doing a quick Google search. I'm not seeing anything pop up. I went to some other, not just Google, but other ways right before the show. From what I understand, the manifesto is not available. So you could have someone just faking something, Internet delivers a lot of phony crap.
Brad Ganser says, the most common threat amongst all mass shooters is mental illness. I do not believe a legislative solution exists that can improve the mental well-being of a society.
Well, and that's the thing is I don't know what the solution is to all this because it's a mental illness. But the left, they just always do this. They call for more disarming of the population. They come for guys like me who you want to have firearms. Because I know what those cops did right there. And if there's a Uvalde situation and no one's going in, I am rushing in. You don't want that to happen, by the way. You want law enforcement to, because you don't want other people with firearms in that building. But if no one's going in to save the day, there's not even a question in my mind. I'm going in there with my firearm, right? So law enforcement better act like those law enforcement, just FYI around here, which I think they will. The Uvalde thing, I think, is a very rare incident from law enforcement because most people go in that path or that chosen path. Certainly if you're on a SWAT team, you're more of a heroic mentality, right? Not a wuss. So so the only way, in my opinion, to stop bad guys with guns or bad girls with guns is to have a good person with a gun, a good firearm. Because just eliminating weapons or eliminating firearms doesn't solve the problem. First of all, they always want to go after the AR-15. This individual could have done the same thing with a shotgun, right? They could have done the same thing with a hunting rifle, right? You can't stop someone from doing this kind of stuff. In countries that don't have firearms, they use knives. They have knife wielding attackers and assailants. We know, was it the Christmas Day massacre in Wisconsin? Someone drove over people with a vehicle. What do you got, Dawson?
I just took a pretty deep look into whether or not the manifesto has been released, and nothing yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
People
I don't think there's
people
anything
are
out there.
Confusing the manifesto with the suicide note text that we read.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, anyhow, it's the same old playbook every single time by the left, coming for guns. Now I don't know how much they ramp it up here because the bad person here didn't really fit the narrative, and maybe now they're going to have to start defending themselves on why they are pushing this trans issue. But we did learn, and let's pull up the article on gun control. And Jesse, you just wrote this article. These clever Democrats in Minnesota are sneaking in their anti-gun legislation into omnibus bills. Tell us about this.
Right. So basically, the way that this works is these Democrats do not want to vote on gun control in a standalone bill because then we, the public, know exactly what's going on. We know what they're voting on. So they pull these types of dirty tricks. They take bills that they have and shove them into an omnibus bill. So they took this 312-page bill, something that the majority of people won't even know about and the majority of people will never read. And they sneak gun control into it so we, the public, do not know. So they decided to add, and this bill itself, the Public Safety Omnibus Bill, is HF 2890. And what they have done is they have added HF 14 and HF 15, which are background checks for all firearm sales and transfers, and then tyrannical red flag laws, where people lose their right to due process. They have their guns and firearms stripped from them without any sort of due process or anything that allows people to continue to have their rights. So this is a major infringement of the Second Amendment. Both of these things will do nothing to stop a mass shooter, a mentally deranged individual, because, of course, the criminals do not follow the law. It's only up to, it's only law-abiding citizens that they want to target and strip away of our rights.
Yeah, and so what you're seeing is the universal background checks, which is HF 14. You put this, so this is now in the HF 2890 Public Safety Omnibus Bill. This is the disaster way the legislature works. It's almost like a joke what happens the first 4 months of the 5-month legislative session, because everything inevitably comes down to the end, right? Mm-hmm. They pass budget bills in a budget year, which is the odd number year. It's a 2-year budget. That's why I say it that way. So even number years, which are election years, they've already got a budget in place. It's a 2-year budget. So come May 21st or 22nd, the legislature's got to pass a budget. Otherwise, they have a government shutdown. In this case, the DFL is a trifecta. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty certain they're going to pass a budget, and it's not good. It's going to increase government by like 32% at least, and not give you back your surplus. So what they do is they pass a bunch of omnibus bills, as Jesse alluded to, hundreds, sometimes thousands of pages, and they cram in a bunch of other legislation in it. But this is unconstitutional. Literally, Article 4, Section 17 of the Minnesota Constitution says, laws to embrace only one subject. No law shall embrace more than one subject which shall be expressed in its title. That's the whole section of Article 4, Article 4, Section 17. That's the whole section right there. Mm-hmm. You can't do this. And they know they can't do it, but they sneak it in. Mm-hmm. It should be a legal challenge if this thing passes. But it shouldn't pass. It shouldn't pass. You need to force your Democrats to vote against this thing, because this is a gun-grabbing, terrible thing for Minnesotans. It's a great way for them to, for like neighbors or ex-spouses to take your firearms away without due process. That's what red flags do. Mm-hmm. And then universal background checks is an unnecessary process for law-abiding citizens to have to transfer a firearm through a federal firearms license holder, and criminals, meanwhile, will just ignore it, right? They won't do anything about it. Mm-hmm. These gun control laws do absolutely zero to stop mass shootings, to stop any of this stuff. All it does is creates more pain for us. And let's not forget about it. These guys want total confiscation of firearms, total licensing, total permitting. They want complete government control. That's actually in a bill that these guys wrote. It's so extreme that probably half the Democrat caucus right now isn't supporting it, because it's so extreme, so radical. They want to take my firearms away. They're always calling for my firearms. I've done absolutely zero, and I'm a good guy, a good law-abiding citizen that you want to have a firearm in case bad people with guns, including government someday, in case they want to do bad things to innocent people. You want people like me armed, but not these radical Democrats. They keep coming for our guns.
Mm-hmm. And, like you were alluding to, not only is this unconstitutional according to the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, it's also unconstitutional according to the state constitution, because this is addressing multiple subjects. That's illegal. That's against the Constitution. And, there's no such thing as a good omnibus bill. Every single one of them is, filled with thousands of pages and, it strips us of our freedom and wastes our tax dollars, especially this surplus money. And, all they're doing is paying off their special interests and lobbyists that fund their campaigns. That's all that, they're doing in these omnibus bills. It's nothing good. It's nothing ever good.
Tucker91 asks, if this passes, can we take away the government's guns too?
I
yeah,
wish.
of course not. Of course not. They never want to take away their guns, and that's the real reason we have a Second Amendment is the government's got guns.
Yep.
That's the other thing. I look at this trans fight and I go, there are people out there, there are forces out there that want us divided, right? And essentially they want total control of the population. These globalists who infiltrate our government, they want complete control of our population. We saw it firsthand during COVID. And so imagine what we'd be like if our population didn't have firearms. We're Australia. That's what we are in a heartbeat. Australia, which actually was putting up camps for the unvaccinated,
Yep.
the COVID resistors. They'll throw you in jail. No, we need an armed population. An armed population is a population that doesn't get overthrown by a tyrannical government. That's the whole point of the Second Amendment. So how do you stop school shooters? Well, I think you got to address mental health issues because these guys are mentally deranged individuals. If they don't have firearms, they have some other way to kill people. Mm-hmm. And if you want to stop these people because they're going to have access to firearms, right? I don't know any perfect way to stop them from getting firearms. I wish there was. Mm-hmm. You need other good people with firearms. This is why gun control fails a lot of times because most people understand this concept. Yep. One of the most interesting things was when COVID started, most firearm ownership went like way high, like increased. Well, we all remember this. You couldn't buy firearms. Liberals were asking about how do I buy a firearm? People are asking, can I borrow your firearm in California, which is illegal because they got UBC. Like they literally, can I borrow you? No, you can't. Because you guys support politicians that made that illegal. Oh, no, I'm scared. I don't know what to do, Crime is skyrocketing because you remember it was May of 2020 where people were really worried about their safety, right? And that wasn't even government that was coming after them. They were just worried about rioting and all that kind of stuff. So, hey, if you're just tuning in, you got to go back to BS program, speaking of rioting, and see the video we had of Leigh Finke. Leigh Finke calling for rioting for the trans community. And then if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you go over to Rumble and start watching us on Rumble because we have no idea how much longer our YouTube channel is going to last. We've had 3 suspensions in the last couple months. It's just absolutely ridiculous. They're so anti-free speech. So last thing I want to talk about here, and let's pull up the GOP article because there's another way to stop gun control. All right. And the Senate GOP, and quite frankly, the House GOP as well. Senate GOP has got the easier numbers to work with. But both Republicans of the House and the Senate have actually one bit of leverage, and that's the bonding bill. So bonding bills are unlike every other spending bill because it goes on the state credit card, which we're just opposed to in general, like putting more money on our credit card, let's be honest. But before you do that, you actually need a 3/5 majority vote. It's not just 50% plus one. In this case, you need 3/5. And so the Democrats do not have a 3/5 chamber. Both the House and Senate, they have very slim margins of a majority. In the case in the Senate, they have a one-person majority. So they need Republican votes to pass the bonding bill. And the current price tag of the bonding bill is at least $1.5 billion. And you can just imagine, yes, there's some good roads and bridges that are getting funded from it, but there is so much pork, so much goodies for politicians. It's just disgusting, these bills. The Republicans in the House actually passed it with the Democrats. But the Senate Republicans realize they have this one little bit of leverage, and they use that leverage to stop it. So Mark Johnson goes to a press conference the other day, Mark Johnson being the very lame minority leader of the Republican Senate caucus, and says, we want this compromise. We're putting this compromise offer up to the Democrats. And this compromise offer is what we demand so that we could pass this bonding bill. Now, the problem is they actually want a bonding bill because Republicans in the state are in love with debt. They love debt. They love debt and spending. We'll prove to you how much they love spending here in just a second. So they put up this ridiculous compromise offer to the Democrats. Nowhere in this offer, Well, first of all, let me put it this way, and this is how I write the article. I think you guys, most of our audience makes up the base of the Republican Party, right? We all know what you guys want. You don't want any gun control laws, as seen here, this public safety omnibus bill. That's a real threat, guys. That's a real threat. You don't want to see that thing pass. So you don't want no gun control. You don't want any more of these radicalized liberal abortion laws in the state of Minnesota. And you certainly want to give back that surplus. If I was going to say 3 big things commonly held amongst the base of Republicans, those are the 3, right? Probably, if you had out of 4, stop this transgender madness, okay? But certainly abortion, guns, and give back the damn surplus. Not a single one of those things are in this compromise deal and the offer by Republicans. They're not fighting for that. You know what they're doing? They're fighting for their special interests. So scroll back down. You'll see the actual offer by the Senate Republicans here below that video. They want, so right off the bat, they say Senate Republicans support passage of the following as a complete package. First 2 are what I had mentioned, basically the borrowing bills. Number 1 is the $1.5 billion I mentioned, and the number 2 is basically $400 million in cash, what they call capital improvements, so things around the state that need improvement. That could be buildings and stuff like that. Number 3 is passage of an omnibus tax bill providing tax relief of $3 billion, and that includes full elimination of the income tax on Social Security. By the way, the Democrats are already 2/3 on board with that. So all they're asking for is a little bit more, which I agree with, right? At the very least. But, let's be honest, that's a small part of the overall problem. And then it says the bill cannot include any tax increases. So you notice $3 billion. Where's the other $21 billion of the surplus? They're not even advocating to give that back.
Yeah.
Like, hello, how about $21 billion comes back to us? Otherwise, you do not get the votes on this bonding bill. And these clever Senate Republican rhinos are going to be like, well, then they're just going to pass that bonding bill in cash. It's like, well, that's better than borrowing because now we don't have to pay interest on it. I cease to see the problem. The problem is Republicans love debt. They love these bonding bills. They love all the goodies they get back for their district, their little pork. And I'm going to get into the art of the deal.
They pretend to fight for us by going to a, give it back rally by saying, we're going to fight for you and give you your surplus back. And then when it comes time to do it, they're pushing BS like this. They're trying to spend even more of our money than the Democrats.
Yeah, do you realize at this point, it is a uniparty. Let's just be honest. We didn't talk about this story. We got to talk about Governor Dayton. We're going to talk about this after it. Governor Dayton's new home. Yeah, we published an article. We haven't talked about this on the show because we published this yesterday. Governor Dayton's moving into former Senate candidate Mike McFadden's home, Republican.
Walls.
What did I
Walls.
say?
You keep
kept
saying
Dayton.
Dayton, I'm sorry. I'm a little older than you guys.
2014 again.
Governor Walz, the more radical. Yeah, we'll get to that article in just a second. I want to go back to this other article. Then they want to, so they get this. They go, number 4, passage of an omnibus human services bill increasing spending by $1.53 billion in fiscal year 2024 to 25, $1.82 billion in fiscal year 2026 to 27. And then it says, bill must address statewide needs as long-term care facilities and nursing homes. And then last but not least, passage of the omnibus agriculture bill increasing spending by $80 million. You guys notice what they're doing? Republicans are wanting to increase spending. They're wanting to increase spending so much, they're actually going to increase what the Democrats are going to do. Go up and play this video. This is the most interesting thing. One of the clever reporters actually noticed the numbers were higher than the Democrats. So here's Rhino Eric Pratt addressing that. Watch this.
I don't have that sheet with me, but I thought the human services target was $1 billion. Was that right? And the chair was not exactly happy with that target, the DFL chair.
Oh, let me check my numbers here.
Quick look here.
This can't be right, can it? Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh, no. Look what it says.
So they had proposed $1 billion. The DFL agreement was $1.3 billion and $1.5 billion, and then we're kicking that up to about 1.8 in the first year,
and then an extra $230 million in the second year.
They're spending more than the Democrats. I mean, does it get any more obvious that there is a uniparty here? Like, there's this old saying, it's like the Republicans are like the Democrats just going 60 miles an hour instead of 100 miles an hour. It's reversed on this one. It comes to human services, the Republicans are the ones going 100 miles an hour. This is unbelievable. Well, it's actually kind of believable when you follow this lame Republican Party in Minnesota. I mean, not shocked at all by that. It's just interesting that someone in the media noticed this and pointed it out, and then they were like forced to actually, yeah, I guess we are kicking it up. We're kicking up the spending from these radical. Can you imagine out radicalizing the radical Democrats in Minnesota right now? And by the way, there's not a Republican on that stage. Eric Pratt and Mark Johnson and Karin Housley and Weber. These guys are not Republicans. Yeah, they run as Republicans. They're just lefties. I know. They all fail our scorecard. They get like failing grades. It's unbelievable. But there they are admitting they're going to vote for more spending than the freaking Democrats in Minnesota. And so nowhere in this, if we go back to that budget deal, nowhere in there are they addressing, you will not pass gun control. We will not give you the votes for bonding. Let's just be honest. That is what they should do. The leverage should be no deal on bonding unless you refuse to pass gun control. Number 2, no passage of these radical abortion bills, because there's this abortion bill. Which one is it? 91? HF 91? I think it's Senate File 70 is a companion bill. I'm pretty certain I got that right. That is an extreme, like California-style abortion bill. So that's got to be an agreement. And then number 3, you give back the freaking surplus. How come the Republicans can't do that? It's unbelievable. Because there's basically no difference between the two parties. Donald Trump, in his great book, The Art of the Deal, said, the worst thing you could possibly do in a deal is seem desperate to make it. That makes the other guy smell blood, and then you're dead. The best thing you could do is deal from strength, and leverage is the biggest strength you can have. Leverage is having something the other guy wants, or better yet needs, or best of all, simply can't do without. They've already lost this deal because they want bonding. They love spending, and the Democrats know it. You ain't gonna do shit about it, Mark Johnson, you weenie. All right, let's go to that article on Walls and Mike McFadden's home. This is just too interesting. If you want to believe in a uniparty, here you go. How did this even come about, William? This is so fascinating to me. How did we end up getting here where Walls is moving into a Republican Senate candidate's home?
Yeah, I mean, if you had any doubts about the uniparty existing, you can put those doubts to rest, because out of all the rental homes available in the Twin Cities metro, they just happen to settle on this one that's owned by a former major Republican politician. Scroll down a little bit here. Not that far back. More towards the beginning of the article. Yeah, so NPR, to their credit, originally covered this story. The state of Minnesota would be paying upwards of $300,000 to Mike McFadden's agency for Governor Walz to stay in this home. And we don't have any pictures of the house in this article, but you can look them up.
I saw someone sent a picture of the kitchen. It's
it's
gorgeous
very
kitchen,
fancy.
yeah.
There's a lot of land. It's a very pretty home.
Well, it's in Sunfish. I know someone that lives in that Sunfish Lake Park or whatever that is. It's a gorgeous neighborhood. It's like all forest.
Yeah. It's $17,000 some dollars per month.
Yeah, $17,000 we will be paying so Governor Walz can move in when there's renovations of the governor's mansion, which we're already paying for, right?
Yeah, and
but why doesn't he just move home? That's what I don't understand, William.
Yeah, well, I was interested in that too, and as it turns out, he doesn't have a home. Governor Walz and his family are homeless. They sold the house early in his first term, which is just ludicrous to me because it's like symbolic of fully submitting yourself to being a politician.
Yeah.
You know, like most people want to portray themselves as statesmen, like, oh, I'm going to go do this job and then I'll go back home. Not Governor Walz. He completely forfeited his Mankato home, and the governor's mansion is where he stays.
So because Governor Walz, tyrant wannabe Walz, decides to sell his home while he's in the governor's mansion, and then the governor's mansion needs renovations. There's a story to that too, by the way. He then requests that we pay for home. Now, Not a modest home. Not a modest home.
No.
A home that costs us at least what we understand to be $17,326 per month, 8,000 square foot home, because apparently he needs to be able to host in this home. Like, rules for thee, not for me. Like, one Minnesota there, Governor Walz, one Minnesota. Yeah, freaking phony.
Yeah.
So what I found interesting, because I remember the story coming up that the governor's mansion needed renovations, and the price tag of renovations is like $6 million. I'm like, wait, I know where the governor's mansion is. I know someone who sold a home on Summit Avenue. It's not $6 million home. You looked it up in Zillow. How much is that home worth?
Less than $2 million. I think it's $1,800,000 something.
So
I put it in the article there, but
1.856, so $1.9 million. So the renovations are 3 times the value of the actual home and property.
what could they possibly be doing that costs $6 million?
You're right.
Like, that's just insane.
Wow. I mean, they're not demolishing the home. That sounds like a complete demolishing and rebuild of a home.
Yeah.
Because you see that out like Lake Minnetonka. You know, those people that are just living on those cash-rich properties that eventually someone wealthy buys, demolishes it, and then builds up a big, 3-level home. That's not what's happening here. I don't think. Right? You think you want to keep the historic beauty of that home.
Right.
For 3 times the value of the home. This is government for you guys, right? All right, let's read some comments and let's sign off here. Actually, before we read comments, any conclusion? We got way off track of the main issue here, this possible radicalization of the trans community. I see issues here, and certainly the left takes far less from the right and makes it a whole storyline to the point where it gets into the government or to the president's speech. I don't think this, until we see the manifest, I don't know where that plays into this thing. But we need to get some investigation of this Leigh Finke thing. That's a pretty big deal. It's Leigh Finke calling for rioting, which is a violent term. So where do you guys fall in this whole thing? Is this an issue that we need to worry about?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if this happened here, well, did we end up pulling up that Benny Johnson tweet? I don't think we actually did.
Oh, yes, great point. Pull up that tweet. So Benny Johnson writes that this actually isn't the first time it's happened. The Colorado Springs shooter identified as non-binary. I forgot about that. That's true. Denver shooter identifies trans. Aberdeen shooter identifies trans. Nashville, this shooter identifies trans. One thing is very clear. The modern trans movement is radicalizing activists into terrorists.
Right.
Is it purposefully doing it? Is it just an overlay of people with mental issues, which make up the mass shooting community? Mm-hmm. You would imagine there's a subset of those are trans people. To me, that's probably more likely than what's going on. But you can't ignore this trans vengeance day. You can't ignore Leigh Finke saying we need to do rioting. You need to join us in this fight. You can't ignore the fact that Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan's got a shirt that says Protect Trans Kids, got a freaking knife on it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can't ignore these things. Or that picture you brought up, protect or trans rights or whatever it was, and it's got all those firearms. You do got to wonder about this stuff.
Yeah, and it's very clear that they're declaring war on Christian families, Christian kids, even just kids in general that kind of go with the norm that society's set up. And we can't just passively sit by and let it happen because, well, regardless of whether or not we figuratively fight back, of course, they're going to come for us.
Right. Jesse?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think, I think it's more of the divergence of the fact that they're living a lie and that they're going to have obvious depression because of that. Unless there's something I'm missing, I'm not finding trainings or anything of, transgenders teaching them how to get violent or anything. I mean, maybe there's some radicalization things going on out there, but if I had to guess, I think that this is more of a mental illness, depression type thing. And it's a public suicide. That's what these mass shootings are.
Yeah. Yeah, most of them are. Yep. Any comments before we sign off here?
Yeah. In terms of we brushed through a couple topics at the end there. So going back to the bonding bill, Brad Ganser asks, maybe our friends in the Senate can hold math lessons during caucus. They could probably use it.
Yeah, I do wonder if any of these newly elected senators are going to start speaking out, right? Yeah. Like, here you go.
Should.
Here's rhinos, Wiesenberg and Liskey and Draz, Lucero. Where are you guys on this? Mm-hmm. Let's hear you. Because
Yeah.
these rhinos are basically saying, you guys want to increase government. Where are you? Talk against this crap.
Right. Tucker91 says, it's a mansion. You're telling me that they couldn't renovate it one section at a time? Walls probably didn't want to be around all the blue-collar workers.
Yeah.
That's actually a really interesting point. I didn't even think of that. I do have a friend who had a renovation. He's a friend down in Texas that they had to get a secondary home for, but that was because of flooding. This isn't because of flooding. I know a lot of people that get renovations on their home and they continue living in it. What the hell? That is a great question. Why isn't he living in the home during renovations?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's more to the story we got to investigate.
Maybe it could be worth investigating, yeah.
I think it is, actually.
Right, and the fact that he sold his home, it makes you wonder. Well, what's his plan when he's done? He's got to have a home when he's done. What's he thinking? Maybe the White House. Maybe that's his next vision.
I was thinking
here.
he's going to exit Minnesota. He'll be done with Minnesota and leave.
I wish
It seems
we could
to be
that
what a lot of
lucky.
governors do. Ventura moved to Mexico, and Pawlenty lived in D.C. and probably Florida now. And
I think he'll run for Senate at the least.
Yeah.
Take Klobuchar's seat from her.
the other thing he could do is he could, do a couple big speeches, make enough money, and buy a bigger home. That's probably what his
true.
plan is.
But Klobuchar, she's running for re-election in 2 years, so that would mean Walz has to wait another 6 years after that. So I think Walz has his eyes set higher than even the U.S. Senate.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about they're floating him out as a potential president.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you want to mention our
President
poll?
or VP or something?
what?
Our Twitter poll?
Oh, yeah. Speaking of presidents, going to have fun with this one. Let me pull it up here. Guys, follow us on Twitter if you're not already following us, because we're going to start doing more polls there. I know everyone loves polls. So the other day I posted a poll asking, who do you have for 2024? It's buried here. Where is it?
Fake news. This didn't
Here
happen.
we go. This is the pinned tweet. So Donald Trump came in second place with 37.5% of the vote. Ron DeSantis came in first with 56.3% of the vote. No votes for Joe Biden. Very sad. And we had 6.3% say they're supporting someone
Jesse,
else.
your comments?
Well, first of all, Trump people aren't on Twitter. That's one of the big things. And also, I think there's a lot of people that don't know about Ron DeSantis and his Guantanamo Bay history. His, people don't know about his. I like to call him Ron to Secret Societies. People should be digging into that themselves. Ron to Skull and Bones, Meatball Ron. More Ron DeSantis. There's a.
I heard Ron Establishment too.
Yeah,
I like
Ron
that one.
Establishment, Ron de Soros.
Soros.
We can keep going on and on and on because there's a lot to expose with
At
that.
what point can he start suing for libel? Jeez.
Huh?
At what point can he sue you for libel?
Oh, I'm
prove
not.
that you're not in Skull and
I
Bones.
am not afraid of Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, he's a public figure, so he couldn't sue anyway. But the George Soros argument's just ridiculous. But maybe we'll talk about this on our next installment of
This is a
Political
huge
Junkies.
sample poll, though. 32 votes. We're just starting, but we just hit 500 finally.
But,
in fact, we just hit 3 months, so now we can actually get a check mark.
Yeah, I was about to say, don't bash your own Twitter poll.
Well, I mean,
Your own
listen,
social
we're going to
media.
bash it because we are new on Twitter. It's taken a while. We have to build up, right?
Mm-hmm. And
So-
I'll tell my Trump people, get on there, get on
Well, hold
Twitter
on.
because
I think a good social experiment was then we do a poll on Truth Social and see how that turns out.
mm-hmm.
Can you do a poll? You can do a
you
poll.
can do polls on Truth
All
Social.
right, let's do it.
If you
Let's
guys
find out.
followed us on Truth Social, we could do more stuff on there. But
All right, go to
we-
Truth Social
yeah.
and follow us there.
action_for_liberty on Truth. On Twitter, it's action_liberty.
There you go. Very good. Well, we appreciate you guys tuning in every episode. Love the audience keeps growing. Love your guys' feedback. We're having fun doing this. We love bringing you information you won't get anywhere else. Hopefully you find this very useful. I cannot wait, by the way, for your research on Leigh Finke. I don't think we're going to do an episode. We'll probably do a special video, maybe a little mini doc on that. So stay tuned for that. We're supposed to interview someone from January 6th. It's just been hard to get her to actually commit to doing it. So I have no idea. I know some of you guys were waiting for that episode. We'll see. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen again this week either. So anyhow, thank you very much for tuning in to this episode, and we'll see you on Thursday.